Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be talking about how if you don't love your husband, you shouldn't tell him you do. And before you say, of course I love my husband, if you can't bring yourself to touch your husband, I call bullshit. And the bullshit is probably internal. Nobody's trying to be a lying sociopath, very few people. And you got to be consistent and coherent in your own mind before you can speak intelligently and clearly and honestly to other people. So hopefully this episode will help you do that. My most recent subscriber episode, though, was awesome too. And there's 185 subscriber episodes. Most recently, there was a pep talk for my subscribers about how to get your goals accomplished in the new year. You should definitely listen to that. And of course, join our accountability group coming up, our Better Breakup group. We have Sex Over 55 coming up. We have so many good ones. I'm going to link them all in the episode description. Okay, so a lot of women tell their husband that they love them, but for some reason, they just can't touch them. I call bullshit. Come on, let's be reasonable. You cannot tell that to your children. You don't even say it to your dog. You wouldn't be like, I love my dog, but I can't touch him. I love my kid, but I can't hug my kid. I'm not talking about sex. Sex can be a hormonal change. Your vagina can hurt. Totally. I get that. You can have sex abuse history. I get that too. What happens though is that if you can never bring yourself to touch another person, I just don't think philosophically you can really say that you love them. So if you, for example, love Chinese food, you're going to want to eat it. This is on the one hand very obvious to anybody who likes touch. And on the other hand, there's people who are like, but I have sensory issues. You have sensory issues, but if your kid goes in for a hug, you do not duck them, because why wouldn't you duck them? Even if you want to, why wouldn't you duck your kid's hug? Because you don't want them to think that you hate them, right? I mean, let us be very clear. I was very clear in my previous episode about how the men who think that splitting assets 50-50 isn't fair are wrong. And in this episode, I take, as I always go, I do the male-female perspective, both of them. In this episode specifically, I am challenging the idea that you could really love your husband if you cannot bring yourself to touch him. How do you love him then? From afar? I mean, he wants to hug, he wants to kiss. Again, I am not saying that you're on your knees giving a blowjob. What I'm saying is if you cannot bring yourself to touch him, do you love him? I don't think so, I mean, at some point, you just got to be objective with the facts on the ground. Now, what are some ways that women feel about their husband when they cannot bring themselves to touch him? They feel these ways. Here's a script. I care about you very much. You're the father of the children, my children, and I love you as a family member. As you notice, I don't hug my sister, really. I don't hug my brother. I only really do hug the kids because I don't like touch. And so that's the kind of relationship that I can be in. I love you like a family member. Now, that may be painful for him to hear, but at least you guys are starting from a place of honesty, right? Or you could say, and this is some other women, I do not really love how you've treated me. I have plenty of empathic ruptures. I have a lot of resentment that I try not to bring up because I don't like conflict. But I do think that you're a good father to the children, and I am willing to stay in this marriage as long as we can so that we do not disrupt the children. But I cannot imagine bringing myself to a place where I could ever touch you and be vulnerable with you because of our history of pain and conflict. And I either am or am not willing to try to tackle this in therapy. Now, that's honest. That's honest. We're actually talking then. That's an actual honest conversation. What is not an honest conversation is, yeah, I love you. Of course I love you. I'm here, aren't I? I just don't like touch. That is a crazy making conversation. Now, the kind of guys that are going to stay in those relationships are guys who are made crazy at home. So where they did not, so a parent was saying, I love you, but somehow didn't treat them very well. So you're basically re-traumatizing that person. Now, shouldn't that person kind of know what's going on and end the marriage if they, if they don't feel loved, sure. Just like all the women who don't want to have sex should say, I don't want to have sex now, instead of just laying there. But if you're a traumatized child grown into a dysfunctional adult, the majority of the people that are going to be listening, then you don't have that strength because you got taught at a very early age that you are worthless. Parents didn't try to do that, but somehow you got that feeling and your self-esteem is in the toilet. So just how I had that whole podcast on how you can't have sex with a woman that just lays there, and it would be great if she could say, well, I don't ever want to have sex with you again, and I dislike you, and it makes me feel terrible to have sex with you, but I still want to remain married because I am terrified to be alone, right? It'd be great if she could say that, but instead, if all she could do is lay there like a dead thing, then I'm trying to tell the man, this is because she's got self-esteem issues. You can't just power on ahead, right? Because she does not have the capacity to speak openly to you. She's terrified of you. It is his fault if he's been in any way abusive, of course, but in most cases he's not. So it's not his fault that she can't speak that openly, but she is a broken, damaged person. So is he, like goes to like, but she's damaged in the way that she can't speak openly. So I'm trying to help him understand and interpret her behaviors. Now, the same thing goes here. If a man is staying with you despite you not touching him, I'm telling you right now that he has terrible self-esteem. Right? He has terrible self-esteem, and at some early juncture, he was taught that he is not worth much and he should be happy with what he gets. So it's not really like you could be like, yeah, he should end it if he hates it that much. Well, A, he has the same issue as you do with not wanting to disturb the children. And B, I'm telling you that he has a broken self-image and feels on some level that this is all that he deserves. The same as the woman who's having sex against her will. So in that case, the person's getting what they want. In the previous case where I said that these women can't assert themselves, so they just lay there passively. So ethically, you shouldn't power on ahead. You can't just forge ahead there. In that case, the man is getting, quote, what he wants. And nobody's happy in these situations. But you could say that in that moment, the man's getting to have sex. It's terrible, but he's getting to have sex and she's not. Well, this is the opposite. In this one, he's not getting any touch at all. And she's getting the thing that she wants, which is not to touch him. So that's not ethical either, right? A person should not live in a relationship where somebody cannot bring themselves to touch you. That's like even animals don't live like that. Like watch Chimp Empire. They're always touching each other. They groom each other. These are our ancestors here in an evolutionary sense. So if you are living in a place where you try to give your wife a hug or a kiss and she shrinks from you, of course, get into couples counseling immediately. Or if she won't do that, then really think about what you are teaching the children, and what you are telling yourself that you deserve. You don't deserve to be with somebody who will not touch you. But on the other hand, you don't have the core self-worth and self-esteem and strength to bring this up. So usually I tell you to bring it up. Now I'm going the other direction and saying to the woman, if you are part of this dynamic, then tell him openly what you feel. You may love him on some level just because he's the father of your children, but that doesn't mean that you love him like being married. Because if you're married to somebody that you will not touch them, that is not a happy marriage. So then we have to figure out a different word that isn't love, because the love word really is not applicable in this scenario. So it could be like, I like you, or I feel a friendship toward you. And if you feel disgusted by your husband, yes, you could think that that's so mean to tell him. It's meaner to act like he's disgusting, but then gaslight him to tell him, not gaslight in a malicious way, but because you feel it'd be so hurtful to tell him that you're disgusted, say it. Say, I feel, now women say the ick. I love you, but I feel the ick, so I can't touch you. Well, you know what? That gives him something honest to go to his therapist with, something real, because these men report back to their therapist and they say, no, she loves me. You don't understand. She loves me. She's got sensory issues. She got sensory issues. Does she touch the child? Yes. Does she touch the dog? Yes. Does she touch her friends? Yes. I mean, what? Like, no, she doesn't have sense. I mean, I'm sure she has sensory issues. Good, fine. But what does she really have is she doesn't want to touch you. That's what she has. So make it clearer. Say, I cannot bring myself to be physical with you. I do not think that that's rectifiable. And or if it is an emotional distance, then I think that we should work on it in counseling. one or the other. But what we don't want to do is be disingenuous and be dishonest with our partners and kind of say things that aren't really what we mean. And a lot of women will not bring this out into consciousness at all, so it's not malicious even remotely. But, very important but, they're never going to touch the guy, and they are disgusted by him, so they are going to live like that in perpetuity. And it is not for me to say what's better for your children, whether they should be in two houses after divorce, or to be in one house where the parents don't touch each other. That is completely up to your individual situation. If you're going to be yelling and screaming at each other, if their lifestyle is massively going to decrease after divorce, if somebody's going to remarry somebody terrible, I don't know the future. So this is not a situation where you could definitively say if you're yelling and screaming at each other in front of the children, that causes them tremendous stress, and so therefore you should separate. If it's a touchless marriage, it doesn't cause them tremendous stress. The bad part is that they assume that marriages are supposed to be touchless. But is that better? I mean, this is a philosophical question, right? The people who listen to this podcast tend to be deeper thinkers, and you know that there's a lot of shades of gray. So is it, quote, better for the children to separate in that situation or not? Like, who knows? I have a lot of stuff on whether or not you should get divorced. Everybody knows I've been divorced, so you see that I will do that, and that I counsel plenty of people who are getting divorced, but I also help many people stay together. So this is not a very easy, definitive answer, as really nothing is in life, but you got to think about whether you can stay in a touchless marriage in perpetuity. And if you knew that she was grossed out by you, or if you told your husband that you were grossed out by him, would you stay? Would you go? Could you at least resolve that you do like him / love him in your way, so therefore you could make it an amicable divorce? No matter what you decide, I think that people deserve to be honest with themselves and with their partners, and to actually, it's so transformative in therapy, by the way, to finally say things out loud. Like, I will never have sex with you again. My goal is to never have sex with you again. You know, like when I think about having sex with you again, I feel very upset. And I try to avoid you, and I try to inch away from you. And I say I love you, but I do not mean I love you like in a marriage. And now I realize, after introspection and thought, after listening to this podcast, that I do not love you as a married couple loves each other. Kind of like what you say to the kids in the script when you get divorced. I have my book, How to Talk to Your Kids About Your Divorce, and you say things like, we don't love each other anymore like a married couple should. If you don't love your husband like a married couple should, then don't tell him you love him. That is the PSA of this. Some people can come back from that because it's due to ruptures and pain and resentment. Sometimes it's due to the fact that the man literally, and it sounds so shallow, so silly, but it's true, literally stopped showering. He's depressed. He smells bad. He gained a lot of weight. He's never up off the couch. And when he gets his depression treated, the couple recovers. But he won't get his depression treated if you're still saying, I love you, I just have sensory issues. And some people do have sensory issues, right? I'm a highly sensitive person myself, not looking down on sensory issues. But if you can hug the dog and you can't hug your husband, sensory issues is not it. Unless he smells so bad, tastes so bad, he's just so repellent to you for reasons that he could solve, or he's repellent to you for emotional reasons that perhaps can be solved in therapy or can never be solved. I don't know your situation, but at least you could try. Because yes, when somebody's mean to you, or you feel that they're mean to you, then they become repellent to you. You know, you become very turned off by somebody after empathic ruptures. And you could listen to all my stuff on empathic ruptures for that. All right, hope this was useful. Again, some straight talk in the new year. I'm going to link all those groups, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Remember, if you ever need a therapist or a coach, reach out to us, bestlifebehavioralhealth.com. As the years, months, etc. go by, I myself have fewer and fewer slots, but I always do have some, at least still as of right now, January 2025. And I'm recording this in 2024, though, so that felt kind of weird to say. And if not, I have wonderful people that work for me, coaches and therapists at my group practice, all virtual, Best Life Behavioral Health. Thanks, guys.